Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. I'm Kerry. Today I'll be showing you how to crochet a branch to go with the blue wren and the robin. I'll be crocheting one with the flowers and one with the holly. I'll be using them to go on cards. When crocheted using 4-ply crochet cotton and a 1.5mm hook, this one, the size is 14 centimetres by 6.5 centimetres or 5.5 inches by 2 3/4 inches. The small branch, crocheted using 2-ply crochet cotton and a 1mm hook, is 10.5 centimetres by 5 centimetres or 4 inches by 2 inches. Today I'll crochet it using the Crochet cotton so it's easier for you to see. I'll be using Crochet cotton today. I've got 162 black coffee for the branch, 390 poppy rose for the flowers and the holly, and 515 emerald for the leaves. I've got scissors, a 2.5mm crochet hook. I've got beads for the middle of the flowers, a darning needle to weave in the ends, and sewing thread and a needle to stitch the flowers and the holly to the branch. Now I'll start on the branch part. I've got my 262, the black coffee, and I start with 43 chain. Now I miss the first chain and work one slip stitch into each of the next 4 stitches. So for a slip stitch I put my hook into the stitch, bring through a loop and take it straight through the loop on my hook. So I need a slip stitch into each of the next 3 stitches. Now I'm going to work a joined slip stitch over the next 2 stitches. I put my hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop and take that loop, the last loop, through the other 2 loops. And that just causes a little bend in my branch. Then I work one slip stitch into each of the next 9 stitches. Next I work 3 single crochet into the next stitch. A single crochet is a double crochet using UK terms. For a single crochet, put your hook into the stitch, bring up a loop, put the yarn around the hook and take the hook with this yarn at the end through the 2 loops. We need 2 more single crochet into that stitch. Then we work one slip stitch into each remaining chain. And when we get to the end of the row, we fasten off. And that's the branch done. Now I'll work the berries. I work about 8 of those berries. I have one lot with 5 and one lot with 3. For the berries I make a magic loop. So I put my hook on the yarn, bring the short end over the hook and then take the long end over the short end. Put the yarn around my hook and bring the hook with the yarn through the circle. And that's my magic loop. Then I work one chain and work 4 single crochet into the circle. Then I pull the circle tight, so I take hold of the tail and just ease the circle in and join with a slip stitch in the top of the first stitch and fasten off. And that's the first berry done. I'll work one more. So I make a magic loop and work one chain and 4 single crochet into the circle. I pull the circle tight and join with a slip stitch in the top of the first stitch and fasten off. Now for the small flowers, I'll need 6 of those. I start with a magic loop and work one chain. I work 1 single crochet into the circle and then work 2 chain. And I repeat that 4 more times. A single crochet and then 2 chain. A single crochet in the circle and 2 chain. And a single crochet in my circle and 2 chain, and one more, a single crochet into the circle and 2 chain, and then work a single crochet into the circle and pull your circle tight, and then join with a slip stitch in the top of the first stitch. So we've got 5 petals of our 2 chain, and then we fasten off. And that's the first flower done. I'll work one more. We start with a magic loop and work 1 chain, and then work a single crochet into our circle and then work 2 chain, and we repeat that 4 more times. 1 single crochet and 2 chain, a single crochet and 2 chain, and repeat till you've got 5 petals. And then work a single crochet into the circle and pull the circle tight, and join with a slip stitch in the top of the first stitch. And fasten off. And I'll need to work 4 more flowers. Now for the leaves for the holly, I've got my 515, the emerald, and I start with 5 chain, for row 1 I miss the first chain and work 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches, and work 2 single crochet into the last stitch. And then I work 1 single crochet into the 3 stitches down the back, into the back loop of the 3 chain, and I join with a slip stitch in the top of the first stitch. For row 2 I start with 3 chain, and I slip stitch in the same stitch as the 3 chain. That's the tip, for the tip of the leaf, and then I work 1 slip stitch into each of the next 2 stitches, then I work 3 chain and slip stitch in the same stitch as the last slip stitch, and then slip stitch into the next stitch and work 3 chain, and then slip stitch into the same stitch as the last slip stitch, then slip stitch into the next stitch and work 2 chain, and that's the first side of the leaf done. Now we're going to join it to our branch. So I'll work this one first. So I'm going to join it a few stitches from the end. So I slip stitch into the branch, and then work one slip stitch into each of those 2 chain. And then slip stitch into each of the next 2 stitches, and work 3 chain, and slip stitch into that same stitch as a chain. Slip stitch into the next stitch and work 3 chain, and slip stitch into the same stitch as the last slip stitch, and then slip stitch into the next stitch and fasten off. And that's the first leaf done. Now for the next leaf, all the leaves are worked the same. I've got my emerald and I work 5 chain. I miss the first chain and work 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 chain. I work 2 single crochet into the last stitch, and work 1 single crochet into the back loop of each of the 3 chain down the side. And then join with a slip stitch in the top of that first stitch. And that's row 1 done. For row 2 we start with 3 chain and slip stitch in the same stitch as a chain. Then work 1 slip stitch into each of the next 2 stitches. Work 3 chain and slip stitch into the same stitch as the last slip stitch. Slip stitch into the next stitch and work 3 chain and slip stitch into that same stitch. Then we slip stitch into that end stitch and work 2 chain. And now we're going to join to the branch. We're working this leaf, so we'll join about halfway between our 3 single crochet and the end. So in about here, just slip stitch in. And then work 1 slip stitch into each of the 2 chain, and then one slip stitch into each of the first 2 stitches on the other side. Work 3 chain and slip stitch in the same stitch as our last slip stitch. Slip stitch into the next stitch and work 3 chain and slip stitch into that same stitch. Then slip stitch into the next stitch and fasten off. And that's the 2 leaves done. I'll just work one more. I'll do 2 in the end, but I'll just show you the one more. So we start with 5 chain, we miss the first chain and work 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 chain, and 2 single crochet into the last stitch. And then we work 1 single crochet into the back loop only of the 3 chain down the side. And then slip stitch into the top of the first stitch. For row 2, we start with 3 chain and slip stitch into the same stitch as our 3 chain. Then slip stitch into each of the next 2 stitches. And work 3 chain. Slip stitch into the same stitch as our last slip stitch and slip stitch into the next stitch and work 3 chain. Slip stitch into that same stitch and then slip stitch into our end stitch and work 2 chain. And then for this one we join it at the end of our branch. And then slip stitch into each of those 2 chain. And then slip stitch into each of the next 2 stitches on the side and work 3 chain and slip stitch into that same stitch. Slip stitch into the next stitch and work 3 chain and then slip stitch into the same stitch and work 1 slip stitch into the next stitch and fasten off. And after I weave in the ends, I'll work another leaf in the same stitch as that last leaf, so I've got the 2 there. For the leaves for the flowers, I've been working 5 of them. So using my 515, the emerald, I work 4 chain. I work 1 slip stitch in the second chain from the hook. One single crochet into the next stitch. A single crochet is a double crochet using UK terms. And 1 half double crochet into the last stitch. A half double crochet is a half treble using UK terms. You put the yarn around the hook, hook into the stitch and bring up a loop. Yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through all the loops. Then we work 2 chain and work a slip stitch in that last stitch with the half double crochet. And then we work 2 chain to join it to the branch. Now I'll join my first leaf a few stitches along from the end. And then I work 1 slip stitch into each of the 2 chain. And then a slip stitch into the back loop of the first of the chain where the half double crochet was. And then I work 2 chain. I work 1 half double crochet in that same stitch, a single crochet into the next stitch, and work a slip stitch into each of the next 2 stitches, the last chain and into the top of the leaf, and fasten off. And that's the first leaf done. They're all worked the same. We start with 4 chain. We work a slip stitch in the second chain from the hook. A single crochet into the next stitch and a half double crochet into the last chain. Then work 2 chain and slip stitch in the same stitch as our half double crochet. Then work 2 chain and we join our leaf to the branch. Now the next one I will join about halfway between the 3 single crochet and the end. And then I work a slip stitch into each of those 2 chain, and a slip stitch into the back loop of where I worked the half double crochet, and work 2 chain and work a half double crochet in the back loop of that stitch, 1 single crochet into the next stitch, a slip stitch in to the back loop of the next chain, and a slip stitch into the point of the leaf, and fasten off. Now I'll work one more leaf for the end, and then I'll weave in the ends, and I'll have to work another leaf to go next to this one and another leaf for the end. So using my emerald, I work 4 chain, I work 1 slip stitch in the second chain from the hook, one single crochet into the next stitch, and a half double crochet into the last stitch, and then work 2 chain, slip stitch into the same stitch as a half double crochet, and work 2 chain, and then I join my leaf to the branch. Now this one I'll join to the end of the branch, sometimes it's hard to find a spot because I weave my ends in a bit tight. And then work a slip stitch into each of the next 2 chain, and a slip stitch into the back loop of the half double crochet, and work 2 chain, work 1 half double crochet in that same stitch as the chain, 1 single crochet into the next stitch, a slip stitch into the next one, and a slip stitch into the point of the leaf, and fasten off. Now I'll just work 2 more leaves for this branch, and I'll have to work another one to go with the holly. I'll work 6 more berries for the holly, and I'll work 4 more flowers and weave in my ends, and I'll be back and we'll put it together. Now I've got my 2 branches. The one for the flowers has 5 leaves, and the one for the berries has 4 leaves. I've got 8 berries and I've got 6 flowers. To make them up, I'll join 5 berries together like that, and then I'll attach it to the branch not too far from this end leaf, and then I'll attach 3 berries together and I'll join them to close to the 2 leaves at the end. For the flowers, I attach the beads as I join 3 flowers together. I do them in 2 sets of 3, like this one. I'll attach 1 knot of flowers near this end leaf, and I attach the other lot of flowers near the 2 at the other end. So I'll attach those, and I'll be back to show you the finished branches. And there's the finished branch. The finished size is about 14 centimetres by 8 centimetres or 5.5 inches by 3 inches. If you've liked my video, please like, subscribe and share. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest and Twitter. The details are in the description below, along with the details of my website where I have my patterns, the details of my Patreon and the details of my Facebook group. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.